Welcome into Triple Zeros, the anti-hot take sports show. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. Be sure to follow me on X at Josh G Buck. Hit me up on Instagram at Josh G Buck, and also follow the show on Facebook, on Instagram, and on X at 30spod. That's the number 30spod. And of course, follow the site clockersports.com, Clockersports on X and on Instagram, and the email address is contact@clockersports.com. And of course, please, if you can, like, share, rate, review. All those great things for the show. Help us grow, help us expand, help us reach more fans. And, man, it's been a little bit of a time. You know, I took a little bit of a break there on Thanksgiving, and some time after. You've noticed this day is a little bit later than the normal release date. That's because I am planning, again, emphasis on the planning part, but I am planning on making the 2-day split, like I said, focusing on, at least right now, for the time being, because, you know, there's so much going on in both the NBA and the NFL. But splitting the earlier week podcast into maybe dropping that on Tuesdays and letting that be the NFL one. And then this one will be the recap of the week that was in the NFL, but mostly it's going to be for NBA stuff. And that will be what our focus will be today. But, you know, because it's the first one, we're going to transition into that slowly. I don't want to, throw too much at you or myself right now and get off kilter. So we're going to start off with some NBA or some NFL action and, go around the league and give my picks because, like I said, I did miss last week. I'm not going to talk about whatever. I took some break, okay? I took some me time, okay? All right? But we're going to talk about this week's slate of games and some of the storylines going on in the NFL and some of the things that I'm looking forward to when the Bears come back from their bye week. So let's get right into it. As I said, the Bears are on bye this week, went into the bye with a win over the Minnesota Vikings in Week 12, an ugly 12-10 game, but it was a dub nonetheless. And then all of the talk out of that is weird. I have a very, very specific beef with local radio, and it's not because they haven't hired me, which they haven't, but that's not the point. Honestly, it's because I am very much against making things dour just for the sake of doing it, just for the sake of conversation. Like, I get there's a devil's advocate aspect to being a daily show host. I get that. I've worked in radio. I've worked on radio shows that aired every day. It wasn't sports, but I've worked on day. I understand how the topic, the subject of topic generation can turn into what I'm talking about now. So I say that to say the conversation about how, Fields didn't show you anything in that loss to the Vikings because he still fumbled the game away twice. The defense had to come and bail him out. I implore those people to kind of go back and listen to their own comments because I'm 100% sure that I've heard any number of them spew many a times how it looked good, but then he dropped it in the end, right? He dropped us off in the end. The defense couldn't help him out, and then he couldn't overcome that. Well, in this game, it looked horrible the entire time. Like, 90% of this game just looked like a slog through mud with your eyes closed and your hands tied behind your back, and you're just probing around. You're just trying to figure out where you're going to go. But in the end, the defense did stand up, and they did give him a chance, and then he did deliver. Oh, but the two fumbles happened before that. Okay, wait a minute, though. Because all I heard when he was looking good and then losing in the end was he did all those great things and then look at what happened in the final drive. Well, this time the final drive came out with him on if they were facing Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, they weren't. I just feel like there's a lot of looking for the other shoe or looking for – there's a lot of moving the goalposts. And it's kind of sick because it's going to happen to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And I just don't know if I feel like that's the least healthy way to discuss anything, let alone sports, because the only way to enact change as a fan is through ticket sales and through your opinions and letting your voice be heard and things like that, right? But when the voice that's being heard is represented by those in the media, it often can come out, I don't want to say jaded, but it just seems like it's already decided. And that to me feels unfair to the player, to the teammates around the player, and to those who are working currently. And I say the teammates part because we've heard numerous teams. I've written about Jaquan Brisker. We've heard TJ Edwards talk about how he loves Justin Fields. We've seen the support Fields has for his teammates. And when he was sidelined, how he was supporting Tyson Bagent, filling in. And yet a lot of this discourse still is, he hasn't done X, Y, and Z thing. And the X, Y, and Z thing is, I want to say new. But again, like I said, the goalpost has moved. It wasn't before, he can't throw. Well, then he threw. Well, he can't be consistent. He can't be a consistent weapon. And then he was dynamic as hell last year. Well, they can't repeat that. They did it a little bit. They were doing it a little bit this year. They took a slow start, but they got back to it. He threw. Well, he can't win. He's not going to have the game win. Dude, what more? Listen, it's not going to always be pretty. And he might not ever be the tier one type of quarterback. But how many of them are there really in the NFL? And how far is he from being a tier 2? I think he's consistency away from being a tier 2 quarterback at worst. Consistency away. And that's not to say that he doesn't have things to clean up. That's just to say that if he could consistently do the things that we see him do well, and that's the difference for a lot of guys. I get that. But my point is that's where he's at. Consistency is key, and that's what I wrote about today for Clocker Sports. I didn't write about consistency being key. I just wrote about the numbers and left it all out there and how despite what may be happening for him on the field, it might be out of his hands. But I think there are more pressing needs for this team than addressing quarterback. And I know, passing on the number 1 overall pick twice in 2 back-to-back seasons would be crazy. But it was also a bad no-no to get it in the back-to-back years in the first place, right? So I don't care about that. I care about what's best for the team, what's best for the organization going forward. And we've heard about Kevin Warren's going to have, he wants to have a non-emotional decision on the quarterback because, he likes Fields. We don't know if he likes him as a quarterback. We know he likes Fields, though. There are Big Ten ties that they have there. Front office could be in jeopardy. Head coach could be in jeopardy, which leaves quarterback in jeopardy as well. And that's unfortunate. But that's the reality of the situation. I personally feel like in better circumstances, this wouldn't be an issue. And I think we've seen enough to give it another year at least. But I need to preface that by saying I am not particularly sold on this class of quarterbacks like a lot of people are. And I get Caleb Williams is the hottest thing since sliced bread. That's cool. I'm not that sold on it. I don't buy that. I'm always happy to be proven wrong and stuff like this. So don't ever think that I'm standing firm and I'll be here tonight. No, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I don't see it happening. And I definitely don't see him being a more successful version of Justin Fields, which is what a lot of people have pegged him as. We've seen Fields deal with the criticism. We've seen him deal with the poor roster around him, which first and foremost, let me just say that was a disservice to everybody. Tearing down the roster like they did last year and leaving it as barren as it was didn't help your head coach, didn't help yourself if you're Ryan Poles, didn't help your young quarterback. Even if you didn't believe in him, it didn't help your young quarterback's trade value for the future, whatever the case may be. It didn't help anybody. So let's just put that out there. But I just think it's hard to be stuck on him when there's so many other holes on this roster. And to find out what it is for the offense, you got to check out the article on Clocker Sports because that is where that article is going to lie for this week. Again, bye week, so it's not a lot of coverage going on. We'll be back this week when they come back to face the Detroit Lions at home in week 14, and have some good stuff for you coming up there. But I just thought that, and then the other person that I really delved deep into that article was Braxton Jones, left tackle Braxton Jones, because he's also been very polarizing for fans. A lot of fans can't wait to get him out of here. See a lot of mock drafts with the Bears drafting a left tackle, a premium position. I totally 100% get why you would think that. But with offensive linemen, as is the case, or as with Jones, rather, as is the case with many offensive linemen, when you hear his name is only when you pay attention to him. I am here to tell you that Jones has not been the issue either. I am a firm believer in his ability to improve. He's a 5th-round pick. I think that means that the learning curve is a little bit steeper. Doesn't mean he can't achieve it. And I think that when you look at the numbers, and that's what I did in this article, again, clockersports.com, Bears offensive breakdown, where does Justin Fields rank among the needs? Braxton Jones is not high on the list of needs for me either. My pick for the offense would be offensive line, center, and at wide receiver. I think they need one more wide receiver. If we know anything about Ryan Poles, we know that he's going to attack a position twice, and more than likely 2 positions twice in the draft. And I would think that receiver would be one of them. That's not to say that they don't have faith in what Tyler Scott can become. They're rookie this year. What Velus Jones can ultimately become, right? The 5th rounder from last year who's had a rough go of it since joining the team. That's not to say I don't think they're going to re-sign Darnell Mooney or even maybe Equinemius St. Brown. But after DJ Moore, there's a lot of question marks. And if you do move on from Justin Fields, you're going to want the next guy to have as much of a good setup as possible, which I think is only going to be more damning on how they handle Fields, but that's neither here nor there at this point. So I could totally 100% see them going after 2 wide receivers in the draft. Tight end, I think, is good. Running back, I think they could, but I think that it's they've proven that they can kind of not plug and play, but they can kind of fit who they want to fit in. They already have a young guy in Roshan. I believe Khalil Herbert has another year left on his contract. I'm not 100% sure about that. So even if Foreman leaves, though, they have at least Roshan back there, and Roshan has looked all right. He's looked decent and has some flashes. So that's a positive for them as well. But we'll see what ultimately happens. It would be center and wide receiver, not in that order. We'll talk about what my draft is when I get through the defensive article. So probably next episode, I'll address what that is. But yeah. So let's just leave that at that right there. So before I do move on, because I do want to cover a lot more NBA stuff in this episode than NFL stuff. I do want to cover some other topics. Let me see if there's anything else that I kind of want to address before I do move on. Joe Flacco starting for the Browns. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the rookie, is in concussion protocol, if I'm not mistaken. He's hurt, whatever it is. He's hurt. And so Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP, or Super Bowl winner Joe Flacco is going to be quarterbacking for the Cleveland Browns in the year 2023 of our Lord. Year of our Lord 2023. I can never say that right. I can never, ever utter that phrase right. So it is what it is, man. I don't know. I don't know. Zach Ertz is a free agent, and he's examining the team. Zach Ertz and Shaquille Leonard are probably two of the more higher profile late season free agents that we've had in some time. I think Leonard's younger, obviously, so he has a little bit more to offer. But I think that people might sleep on what Ertz can bring to a team if he's given the opportunity. And we know that we're hearing that he wants to land with the contenders. Saw the Chiefs wrote about that for last round on sports. So go ahead and check that out as well. But Ertz has still been productive. He dealt with injuries for a couple of seasons, but he was 17 appearances last season, I believe it is, either last season or the year before. But he hasn't been as banged up as he was for that little 2-year stretch there. So that's always a good thing. And if you're a team like the Chiefs, like I wrote about, when you're having questions about not only wide receivers, but Travis Kelce hasn't been the guy that he usually is, it never hurts to have more weapons. And so I think that Ertz could be a guy that could help him. We'll see if they actually pursue him, but I think he could definitely be somebody that aids them. Before we move on, let me go ahead and do the Week 13 picks so that we can, like I said, talk about a lot of basketball. It's storyline stuff, some results based, but I got some Bulls news that I got to go into a lot of, some Hawks stuff, and then obviously gonna discuss the Lakers and they tie in with the Bulls, but. Yeah. So anyway, first up, we had the Thursday night game. That was the Cowboys and the Seahawks. And I want to say this. I know I'm not giving the projection because obviously it already happened. I am surprised at the Seahawks offense was able to hang as long as it did with the Cowboys defense. Not to say that I think the Cowboys defense is like the 85 Bears, but I think it was at least mildly surprising to see that they were able to put up as many points, keep themselves in the game for as long as they did, because Dallas came in as a big favorite, and they were not necessarily playing that great Seahawks that is coming into this contest. So it was a very big surprise for me to see them keep it as close as it was, and it might be a little bit of a wake-up call for Dallas that, if they were already not, knowing they got more to do, I think they know that already. Dak's been lights out, but he's been saying that they got more to prove. If they didn't believe it before, they should definitely believe it after that contest. So let's go ahead and go through the rest of the slate here. We have the Niners at the Eagles. The Niners defense is playing lights out and worlds better than the Eagles defense is, but the Eagles have a difference maker, I think, in quarterback. And that's not to say I don't think Brock Purdy is good, but I think Jalen Hurts has that it factor that matters most, especially when we're talking about quarterback. So give me the Eagles at home. Browns at the Rams. The Browns defense is legit. Joe Flacco's making his first start, I think, in like 2 years, though, so I'm not feeling that at all. And the Rams actually played a lot better than I expected them to last week. So give me the Rams in maybe a tighter game than it was against the Cardinals last week, whoever they faced. Give me the Rams over the Browns in this contest. Chiefs at Packers. I'm going to take an upset here. As much as I know the Chiefs, who they are, and the juggernaut they are, and how good that defense has been this year, not juggernaut offensively this year, but like juggernaut in terms of their recent history, I'm taking the Packers. Packers at home at Lambeau. I think it's going to be a cold game if I'm not mistaken. That's not the point. The point is I think the Packers are playing a lot better than they're getting credit for. There was a lot made about Jordan Love having to replace Aaron Rodgers and the drop-off that was going to result from that. But I think that was overblown when you put the system in place and all you're replacing, even if it is the conductor, if that's all you're replacing for the most part, that's fine. I think you'll be able to deal with that, and that's exactly what is playing out for them now. Hasn't been perfect, has not been pretty, but you've seen a much easier transition for him than you have for, say, Fields, who has been the starter, but has obviously had to overcome a lot of changing parts around him, as opposed to what Love has stepped into this season, his 4th NFL season, if I'm not mistaken. So, good stuff from the Packers in terms of their development, their ability to develop. And I think that this one, they'll pull out a tight game against the Chiefs, who have not been able to blow out a lot of teams this season anyway. And I think could find some more difficulty than they expect going up against this young and feisty Packers team. So that's my upset of the week, is the Chiefs losing to the Packers. But I'm not, I ain't going to hold you. That's just my thought process on it. I skipped a whole bunch of games here, so we're going to go back up to the top. The Colts and the Titans. I don't have a lot of faith in either one of these teams, to be honest with you, but the Colts still have Derrick Henry. The Titans are running around on the Colts rather are running around on Minshew Magic. The Titans still have Derrick Henry. Colts do have Jonathan Taylor. Oh, no, he's hurt. So you're running around with Zach Moss and Gardner Minshew back there. Yeah, give me the Titans with Derrick Henry, despite the fact that I don't have a lot of faith in, like I said, either one of these teams. Coaching staff in Tennessee, I think, is on its way out. And so, give me the Titans, but just because, by default, not necessarily because I have faith in what they could do. Jets, Falcons. I would love to say the Jets here. They're starting Tim Boyle. Aaron Rodgers is practicing. He's looking forward to Week 16. I guess that should have been the storyline, is that Aaron Rodgers is returning to practice. But I think we're tired of hearing about that right now. I will say this. If he turns out to be returned, and I had to look into, I'm not a doctor, but like, is it a partially torn Achilles, right? Was it like a minor rip in the Achilles? Because there's no way you blew your Achilles out and you come back 3 months. If it is, this medical procedure that he had should be being ballyhooed from here until the end of the earth, and it just has not happened. So I'm curious, just curious. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm wondering, did it happen? And that's that. So, give me the Falcons over the Jets here. I just don't have faith in Tim Boyle and what that Jets offense can do, even though I really like the defense. I think the Falcons have been playing a little bit better, and I think that they're just a better team right now. I just don't know what's going on with the Jets. They're a weird team, because for as good as the defense is, and as good as a coach as Robert Saleh is perceived to be, they have not overcome a lot. And I think that that's an issue. So that's that. Give me the Falcons. Another upset, I guess, because they are the road team. They're not good either, but I just like the Falcons. Lions at the Saints. Give me the Lions in a game that I think is going to be tighter than they might expect, because the Saints defense is legitimate, and that offense can put up points when it's locked in, and the Lions defense is ass. Like, just to be kind, it's not good. They let points up. They don't rush the passer very well, and like I said, the Saints have a stout defense that can rush the passer and can hold you down in terms of your passing game. So I see this being a closer game, but I do think the Lions end up coming out on top. Broncos, Texans. As much as I think the Texans are going to win the game, and I'm going to go with that as my pick, don't be surprised if the Broncos pull off the upset here. Russell Wilson has been playing well this season, despite the numbers not being what maybe people expected them to be when he became Mr. Unlimited and all that weird stuff. But the defense is playing well, and he's not, like I said, he's playing well enough to win games. The Texans are, I guess, I feel maybe this is more of a pick, like or a caveat, because I just feel like they eventually have to hit a wall, but they don't, and they might not, and C.J. Stroud might not, and they could easily win this game. But I'm just saying, I don't be surprised if the Broncos do come away with this game. I'm still picking the Texans, but don't be surprised if the Broncos come away with this game. Chargers at the Patriots. I'm picking the Chargers, and that's because I have zero faith in whatever the hell it is that the Patriots have become. I have no faith in the Chargers either, but I have even less faith in what's going on with Bill Belichick's crew right now. I just don't know how you let it get to this point. That situation has devolved further than I think anybody has ever expected it to be able to, let alone, continue to. And here we are, though, at this point, looking at a Patriots team that doesn't really have a quarterback. Might be looking at one of the greatest coach in NFL history, or one of, if not the greatest coaches in NFL history, heading out the door after this season and hitting the reset button for the second time in 4 years after not doing so for 20 plus years. That's insane. I have to say one time, that's just crazy to think about how much stability they were, and now how much I think things are about to probably change for this Patriots organization. It's just wild to think about. Then you have the Cardinals at the Steelers. Give me the Steelers. The Cardinals got Kyler Murray back, but the Steelers defense is still the Steelers defense, and Micah Fitzpatrick is returning to action this week, so that boosts is going to be palpable, and I think they're going to be disruptive against the Cardinals team that has firepower, but is just not good yet still. Dolphins, Commanders, give me the Dolphins. They're going to boat race the Commanders. I have no faith in what Ron Rivera is still doing there, or is still trying to do there. I like Eric Bieniemy, but I lost a lot of that faith too, because I mean it just hasn't clicked. We've seen how have flashes. We have not seen any sort of consistency from him in terms of anything. So, I guess the development, there's been some growth behind center and not taking as many sacks or looking like he's being more alert in the pocket, but you got to put I don't put lipsticks on pigs. I just try not to, at least. And so I'm going to take the Dolphins, who are a well-oiled machine, going up against the Commanders, who, again, are another team looking at another overhaul come offseason. So, Panthers at the Buccaneers. Two bad organizations, but the Buccaneers are still far and away better than whatever the Panthers are doing right now. They just fired Frank Reich. A year, not even a full year into his tenure, after they took the quarterback Bryce Young that he didn't want to take, or he wanted the other guy, C.J. Stroud, whatever. It's a shit show down there because they also fired Josh McCown and Deuce McAllister, both quality coaches. Frank Reich is a quality coach too, even if he's not a head coach, he's a quality coach. And but the assistants is a little bit more egregious because those guys were believed to be solid, and so they should land on their feet soon. But it's just more signs that change isn't, for the sake of change, isn't always a good thing. Impulsive owners are just as detrimental as poor players, and I think that's probably the greatest lesson that those guys out in Carolina should probably learn, is to just sit back and let these things kind of play out and let the football people handle the football business, right? Mr. Tepper, you are an owner. You've gotten rich. Go do what you did to be rich. Let them do that part of that business. That's all. Switching gears, because I've been spending way too much time on the NFL stuff. I just love it. What am I supposed to do? Switching gears, though, to the NBA. I am not so sure if you've heard, but the Chicago Bulls are not good. And so that's led to a lot of trade speculation, and now we've gotten word of DeMar DeRozan's preferred list of trade destinations, and they are the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks. Now, the Heat one is interesting because they missed out on Damian Lillard this past offseason, and they seem to miss out on a lot of trade targets other than Jimmy Butler in recent years. Kyle Lowry, I guess, counts as well, but stars, we're talking about Jimmy Butler. And even then, Jimmy Butler had a lot of questions. He came with baggage in terms of being like a bad locker room guy, which turned out to not be the case. It seemed like it was on those places that he was at, but still, that was an interesting one. But the real one, I think that could be a real interesting threat, is New York. And here's why. New York, we know, is always looking for a star. They're a good team right now, above 500, and I believe 5th place in the Eastern Conference standings, but they are still feeling like they're missing a piece, and the Eastern Conference arms race is perpetual. You have teams like the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks who are adding star-level players to their teams as well, while they're already atop the conference, so you can't just sit idly by and expect to just improve, Bulls, and think that that's going to be okay. So the Knicks, our team that's always linked to stars, like I said, and you got them kicking the tires on a deal with Zach LaVine, but not being interested because of the price tag that's been attached to him. Well, DeRozan, in the final year of his contract, at 6 years older, right, despite being the more effective player over the past couple of seasons, could be an easier get. And if that's the case, it's also important to remember that DeRozan had them atop his list when he was a free agent in 2021 before signing or getting the sign-in trade to the Bulls from the Spurs. So if there's a trade destination for DeMar DeRozan I think makes the most sense, it's the New York Knicks. Because the Knicks, like I said, have a need. DeRozan had an interest. And again, we know that they had an interest in adding something from the Bulls roster. We know they wanted LaVine. LaVine may not have wanted to go there because of Leon Rose, whatever the case may be. It's almost too clean, right? Because you could say, oh, what about Caruso? Because Caruso would fit with what Tom Thibodeau wants to do. Yeah. But like I said, it's such a clean fit that this, I think, would be the best option for both sides. It depends on what they get back. First round picks, Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier. I think you had to add something else to that, but you're getting close, and you're getting close enough to where if you're Chicago, as things keep devolving, even if you got that win right over the and especially because you got that win over the Bucks without DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, you have to consider your options, and I think that would be that would be an interesting one. Now, as for LaVine, we're hearing that there's not a substantial trade market for him. That's not a surprise either, because he's been on the trade block for the past year. And so if there was a deal for him, it would have happened this offseason, right? When teams had more money, but also because it wouldn't have shown that he is proving to be a lot of what people thought of him. Empty calories. He puts up numbers that don't really affect winning, and that was what Wojnarowski, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, I'm going to say it right, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski said during his report about there being little to no trade market for LaVine right now, is that teams want to see him play winning basketball. That's always been the knock on him. So the thing is, I still think there will be a trade market, but I think the Bulls are going to have to substantially come down from their asking price, because the reality is LaVine is a player who's got a lot of warts. As pretty as his game can be when he's locked in, he's got a lot of warts, from questionable attitude in terms of taking responsibility for what's going on the floor. And this is not my opinion. This is what is being reported about the teammates questioning him. To his injury history, to his game lacking on the other end, because he can lock in. We see it in the Olympics. He can lock in defensively. He does not do it consistently enough. We heard comments from Alex Caruso, and I wrote about this for Heavy on Bulls. You can go check the article out. Caruso talked about him and DeRozan not necessarily, or when they're locked in, their team is pretty hard to beat. That suggests that they're not always locked in. Why would you know the difference? Why would that even need to be a qualifier? There should be no caveat that they should always be dialed in 100%. They're not, and it's evident. So I think the Bulls are just going to have to come down off of that price before, if they really are as determined to get a deal for LaVine done as word is they are. We'll see if it ends up happening, but I'm this team is devolving fast. Like I said, it came into the season hoping on a dream, that something I wrote about 2 years ago, actually, before ahead of last season, that it was a big risk to run it all back just for the sake of running it all back, which is what they were doing, because they weren't building off success. They were building off of stumbling into the postseason on the back of a surge that was built with a player who was not available to them. Now, that was the other part. They lied about that to themselves, about that part, and really to the fans, but mostly to themselves, about Lonzo being able to come back. Him not coming back threw a monkey wrench in their entire plan, but that should have been the plan, that he was not going to be there. Now, this offseason they addressed it a little bit more, but clearly they didn't do enough, and they're where they are. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances, but it's one that they brought upon themselves, and I think is really going to be it's gonna take some time to get out from under, because they've traded away so much to get it to this point, and now they're stuck. They're kind of just stuck in neutral, trying to figure out what to do next. Elsewhere, you have KD, Kevin Durant, getting into a back-and-forth spat as he moves up the all-time scoring list, which is hilarious, with the Adidas, I believe it is, social media team. Adidas is the shoe brand for Anthony Edwards, Minnesota Timberwolves star Anthony Edwards, who said that he would love to see KD in a pair of his shoes. KD slammed the shoes, said he wouldn't see him. The social media team commented that KD was dusty, had to delete the tweet, and then apologize, saying, or not apologize, but saying they thought they did from a burner account. So, tongue-in-cheek apology. Listen, we talk about KD being overly sensitive and all that kind of stuff on the internet, but I think his accessibility has been something that has fit this era of fan interaction, where people feel like they can say anything and everything to you on the internet, right? KD's not too high on the horse to come down and interact. I'm not even gonna say strike back, clap back, none of that, because sometimes it's positive, a lot of it's negative. It's usually funny though, and it's interesting. And again, like I said, it's very, very apropos for the time. And I'm not sure how much more you want other than that, but I just think it's really cool to see a player of his stature still, no matter like the most innocuous of comments, or the most mundane, most repetitive, whatever, redundant rather, or whatever comments, and here he is, nah man, X, Y, and Z, and I ain't got time for none of that. I love it. That's what you need to see. What else do we have going on? Tyrese Halliburton is sidelined, dealing with a fall from Thursday. He's sidelined with an illness though against the Miami Heat. Trying to think of other news before I talk about the Hawks and what I think is going on with these guys here. Tatum got kicked out. He said he wasn't mad at the refs. These are all old news, and we have a slate of games coming up that I want to talk about real quick today. But I'm just, Luka's coming back against the Thunder today. Recording this again, like I said, on Saturday, so it's just heavy basketball day. Pat Beverly told Austin Reeves is going to be on. He's on his ass every time he faces the Lakers or whatever team Austin Reeves is on, because of the too little from last season when Beverly was with the Bulls. I love it. That is so Chicago, and not because it's petty, but because it's petty. Like, because, oh no, I got to get you. I got to get the one up on you. That's the part of it that I love. Not the petty of what the incident's hilarious. Because it's the reason why it's funny that's the reason for Beverly is because Beverly, or Reeves did it to Beverly because Beverly did it to LeBron James. Like, you're mad at payback for the payback is my favorite bit of pettiness about it. Like, oh, you got me back for getting somebody else? Oh, okay. Oh, all right. You didn't have no reason to do that. And Pat is like, no, I'm staying on business. I love it. Gotta appreciate that. Terrence Ross, former Orlando Magic swingman and current, I think Phoenix Suns. Wow. Phoenix Suns swingman Terrence Ross has called it a career. One of the, I think, a dunk champion, high flyer, never really got to take off as the career. I think many thought for him when he came out of, was it UConn? High flyer. And can shoot the ball a little bit too, but got kind of lost in those Magic teams that are just toiling away in nothingness for the longest time. And now it's calling it a career. He said he enjoys spending time with his family and just playing that dad role. And how do you hate that? He's had a decade, long NBA career. He's made a lot of money, and now he gets to go enjoy time with. That's the dream right there. The Lakers get Rui Hachimura. Man, I did it again. Rui Hachimura and Jarrett Vanderbilt back today versus the Rockets. Neither one of them have played in quite some time. Vanderbilt's only played, I believe, one game this season. Has he played this season? Vanderbilt might have been the entire season. Has only played one game in the preseason. Hachimura's been out for the past handful of games or so with broken nose. Vanderbilt was dealing with a calf strain. Leg injury. Man, I have got to get my injury report news back up because that's the problem here. We're really slagging on what guys were out with, but they were out. You can be sure about that, and now they're coming back. Big boost for the Lakers because they are one of the teams who have been linked to the Bulls players, like I said, with DeMar DeRozan. You got to read the article in Heavy on Bulls about what DeRozan's landing spots are and how I think it's significant that the Lakers aren't there and what that really means for them. Also wrote it for the Lakers, Heavy on Lakers. Check that out as well. But the Lakers are a team that's if they want to do something big, they're going to have to probably wait till mid-December and maybe even January if they want to include Hachimura in the deal. But getting Vanderbilt and Hachimura back on the floor will help them assess what they really are as a team. They've been getting by with a patchwork starting lineup. Cam Reddish has been in there. Max Christie's been in there. Taurean Prince has been in there. Like, it's been a lot. They've cycled from Austin Reeves in the starting lineup to the bench now. Get their whole team back out there. I think Gabe Vincent is either back or close to being back, and you will see a more complete picture of what you guys can be. And then they can make a decision from there. And like I said, we're getting close to that first mark, the 2 weeks away from that first marker I said, the December 15th marker. They get there and they're still kind of having this inconsistency, but I can see them swinging something. Maybe not even something major, but just something to get them a little extra boost. If they wait, though, and they get to that, closer to February, they'll probably make a major deal, and it could be for the Bulls guard Zach LaVine, who, while that market's not there, doesn't mean it's not existent, right? There's not a significant market, which means there's not a bidding war, but there could still be interested suitors. We know the Lakers' interest is real, per Javon Bua of The Athletic. He did right. Bua did that. The Lakers are more focused on DeRozan and Alex Caruso, in a trade, but if the price is right and it keeps coming down to LaVine like I think it should and probably is going to have to, they might pounce on that because LaVine is the younger player, the more dynamic player, even if he has not been the more efficient player as of late. But you slap him to a third role where he's really the number one scoring option, right? He'll be the third star, but LaVine could still be the number one. Think about that dynamic on the Lakers, because LeBron's the number one guy still, clearly. And you could say he's the number one scoring option too, but he's got the ball in his hands so much sometimes it's almost by default. So I just call him the number one option. Number one scoring option would be LaVine, because Davis's primary function is defense. He just happens to be really effing good on offense too. But LaVine is really effing good on offense and then all right on defense when he wants to be. You can balance those two together. It kind of is a really, really solid match, especially in the post-LeBron years with AD and LaVine. I don't know if they're going to be a championship contender, but they'll be a competitive team that maybe the next super-duper star wants to come and fit right in and help carry and bring in whatever banner they'd be trying to achieve at that point. I just think that the fit with the Lakers is better there. Fit for DeRozan is better with the New York Knicks. I think Caruso ends up going somewhere else. I'm not sure. I can see him being with Denver to try to replace Bruce Brown, maybe in Dallas to try to help them get some defense. And that, Or I could even see Caruso sticking around while they try to, retool on the fly with something else. I don't know what that would be for the Bulls, but I could see them trying to avoid doing the full-on rebuild, even if they do end up trading both of those stars, just because I think there might not be that much of an appetite for a rebuild, because a rebuild takes patience, and if you're already having to hit the eject button on this group, I'm not sure that patience is something that this front office will be afforded from the ownership. So just a couple things to keep an eye on, because I'm for one, keeping my eye on, how this shakes out for the Bulls and where these guys end up. That's always interesting to me. I'm always just wondering about the Bulls and how a team that had achieved such heights falls so far. And then, like the baseball often reminded, that it's because of ownership, just like the Sox, just like the Cubs, just like many sports organizations, it comes down to the leadership at the top. And so, it's tough. But you forge through. As a fan, you just watch and hope that they figure it out. And if not, well. As for the Atlanta Hawks, they are still floating around 500. They can't seem to shake that. They are doing it without Jalen Johnson for the past 3 games now, I believe it is. And so they got a big win over the San Antonio Spurs against a feisty Spurs team that I did not expect to put up that kind of a fight. But they got the win. And it came down to Trae Young taking a charge. And head coach Chris Snyder talked about Young's stepping in and stepping up for his teammates in that moment, and how that was a big-time play. And I wrote about this for Soaring Down South. You could check that out. But I think the bigger thing here was just we're reaching that point. I had that same feeling with this Hawks team that I had at the beginning of last season, where you could feel they're missing something. And I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just Jalen getting back in there and continuing the ascension that we've seen from him so far. Most improved candidate, no doubt. Has to be. He has to be a candidate for most improved player. If he's not, then you're tripping. So maybe that's what you need. But I still feel like they're lacking in the front court in terms of size and skill. And by which I mean, maybe your big man can't knock down threes all the time, but he's got to be able to body up with the bigger guys consistently. And when he does that, he's got to be able to put the ball in the basket consistently. I don't know if we see that enough from the Hawks bigs in Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, who they just extended, so he's probably not going anywhere. We see him extending his range. They played him a little bit more at power forward. But you're still, I think, lacking a lot in the paint, especially when you get against some of those matchups in the playoffs, against the Joel Embiids, against the Miles Turners in the playoffs. Because you might run into the Pacers, who I think are going to make the playoffs. Let me put it that way. They haven't been great, but the Pacers are a talented bunch. The Cavaliers have size. Your big men are smaller than all those teams, right? The Bulls, your big men are smaller than the Bulls. Like, you have to, I think, have more size, because otherwise you're just capped strictly by ability, strictly by measurements. We'll see what they do to address it, if they even try to address it, but I think that might be the feeling that I have. And that's not to say that I don't think that Clint is a good player or Onyeka. I just feel like it's where the Hawks fall short, literally and figuratively, is in the height department. They just seem to be outsized a lot of times. That was an issue in my opinion, against the Spurs, who also had pace to match up with them. They were big. It's hard to get around. The Hawks are small in the backcourt, and they're small in the front court, in the pivot. They got some size in the wings, but your wings aren't engines like that. Johnson is, but like I said, you're missing him, and he's still a younger player, still coming into his own. It's an interesting situation for them as they try to figure out who they are with Quinn Snyder at the helm. But I just could not shake the feeling that, man, this is oddly similar to what we saw from this team last season. And so I'm not sure where it goes, but I would just be keeping an eye on what they try to do to kind of fix that. And they need perimeter defense too. So maybe you fix that first, and then the Clint's deficiencies don't look nearly as glaring, right? You don't have guys getting penetration to the rim anyway, so there's even fewer attacks at him, and he can withstand some of the punishment that he takes from the other bigs better. Whatever the case may be, just keep an eye on that. as the season progresses. Looking at a couple of today's games, the Clippers and the Warriors right now. Warriors are up 30-22 on them. Timberwolves and the Hornets. Hornets are without LaMelo Ball, so going to be the Timberwolves, who are still playing well. Cavaliers and the Pistons, or who are still a good team rather. Better team. Cavaliers and the Pistons. Give me the Cavaliers. Magic and the Nets. Give me the Magic, who are ahead of the Bulls in the standings. The Bulls helped the Magic build this roster, and now they have to watch them from below as Magic ascend the Eastern Conference standings. Listen, I'm not going to spend too much more time on it, but that's a damning of a reality for Arturas Karnisovas and company as anything else. The team that you helped build, that you thought that you were getting the better player from, is now above you in the standing, and comfortably so. And their trajectory looks far more encouraging than yours does, far more positive than yours does. Just keep that under your hat. Bulls, Pelicans. LaVine is still I'm going to say the Bulls pull off another one. I'm going to say the Bulls get another win, and then they start changing some of that narrative. And maybe DeRozan's fit is proven. I think he might play this game. I know his injury is not as significant as LaVine's is, but we'll see. Heat, Pacers. Yeah, give me the Heat without Halliburton, especially for the Pacers. Give me the Heat in that one. Heat culture at home is probably one of the more underrated things, even if it is a little bit overblown with that floor sign that they put down. You got Hawks at the Bucks. Can the Hawks do what the Bulls did? I think the Hawks might catch an angry Bucks team, but they shoot better than the Bucks do, and the Bucks just aren't the offensive team that they just it's been ugly for them. So I think the Hawks can get out here and kind of do some things that'll maybe get the Bucks on their heels a bit early on. They're rolling right now, and if they keep that going on, that could be trouble for the Bucks. So give me the Hawks in the upset on the road upset on this one. Thunder and the Mavericks. Give me the Mavericks at home. Luka's returning, like I said, so give me the Mavericks at home over the Thunder, who are probably a better overall team, but the star power that Luka Doncic, the star power that is Luka Doncic, I think is just not going to be something they can overcome today in this game. Grizzlies and Suns. Give me the Suns. The Grizzlies have not been a good team without Ja Morant, who is being sued by that 17-year-old for assault. Just the hits keep on rolling if you're Ja Morant. I know he thought he was going to be almost done. He's quietly going about his business. Nope, not done yet. This is what happens when you get in trouble. It tends to snowball like this, and that's why they say it's best to avoid those situations. Trailblazers at the Jazz. Give me the Jazz, because the Trailblazers are not a good team. They're just a young team, still trying to learn their way. Nuggets, Kings. Looking forward to this one. This one I think is a toss-up. I'm going to go with the Kings because the Nuggets still don't have Jamal Murray yet. But do they have Jamal Murray? I think Jamal Murray actually is back. So give me the toss-up. I'm going to come back. Leave this one up with the caveat. Hold on as I look this up. And then last one, you have the Rockets and the Lakers. Give me now that I think about it, I don't know, because the Lakers are the better team, but the Rockets are a young team. We know young teams can get ahead of themselves, and kind of ride the momentum to a victory. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Lakers will win it, but there's a little less confidence than I think I initially had when I started making that statement in the first place. And then Murray suffered an injury setback. That's what I thought. So give me, not Murray, but give me the Kings in the matchup against the Denver Nuggets in that one. So that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck, on X at Josh G. Buck. Oh my gosh, man, I do it every single time. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports website, clockersports.com. The email address is contact@clockersports.com. And of course, you can follow the show on X and on Facebook at Clocker Sports at 30spod, the number 30spod. And you can always follow me everywhere, Josh Book, like I said. Check out the stuff, man. Last word on sports, last word on pro football, heavy on Bulls, heavy on Lakers, soaring down south, and of course everything gets aggregated over to clockersports.com. Until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.